This entitled mom thinks she can get away with stealing a goat, but before she does, she makes the most outrageous claim that will make you laugh. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the show. I honestly didn't believe that there are these kinds of incredibly entitled people who think that stealing a phone from someone to entertain their kid is acceptable behavior. Guess you never believe insane things till they happen to you. For a little context, I work as a security consultant for a fairly paranoid company, which is kinda understandable considering the sensitive nature of our work and the kind of client we usually have, but it leads to zero crap taken policies. Yesterday, I took a day off to deal with some of the lovely government bureaucracy. I sit in an office, government office no less, and wait for an appointment. It's hot, it's kinda humid, the kids forced to wait there with their parents are cranky, and I'm reading and answering my email on my phone, since there ain't much else to do anyway. Entitled kid EK comes up to me. "What you playing?" I'm not playing, I'm doing my emails. I admit it may look like playing a game since I'm not the young kind of person who is super fast at typing on a phone keyboard, a skill I really envy the youth of today for. I'm more hunt and peck style. I prefer using a desktop by far, and I need to concentrate to actually hit the right letters, so I don't notice that EK returns to his mother, who appears shortly afterwards just as I finish my mails. "Come on, let my son play on your phone for a while so he doesn't nag me." "Sorry? Ma'am, this is my work phone. There ain't no games on it. There really is nothing on it that could remotely be considered fun. These things are stripped down to the bare bone, must be present stuff with zero leeway when it comes to what you can put on them." "Bollocks, I saw you play. Let him play for a while. We'll be in before you so you get your precious phone back soon enough." "Sorry ma'am, I'm not allowed to give my work phone to anyone." That's no lie. On my phone, some rather sensitive information is potentially accessible. It does take a few extra steps, and you need to jump through a few additional access hoops, but as said before, my company is a bit paranoid when it comes to this, and we're only allowed to use our phones to access corporate information in what is considered a controlled environment. I'm, as said above, in a government building, with an additional feature that will become apparent soon. It doesn't get any more controlled than that. Most of all, I'm not allowed to give my phone to anyone outside the company, and even only a select few people inside of it, and most certainly not in an unlocked and hence usable state. Fortunately, at this point, I already closed down the mail container, which needs additional unlocks to access the mail portion, as she simply snatches my phone from my hands. I was actually flabbergasted for a moment before I realized what she just did. She had my work phone in her hands, unlocked. In short, I am very close to not having a quiet weekend, and she is very close to having a few very uncomfortable weeks, months, or years, depending on only how creative our legal department gets. Ma'am, please give me back my phone this very moment. My company is very strict with phones, and unless you hand it back this very moment, I have to report this to the authorities and report a theft of my phone to my company. They will press charges. Please ma'am, please give me back that phone. No luck. She waves it off and tells me to not be a baby as she hands my phone to her son, telling me now I'll get it back as soon as it's their turn to go in. "It's not like we're leaving with your precious phone." "Ma'am, for the last time." Actually, him pushing a button on the phone would already have required me to report it as stolen and tampered with, but I am at this point willing to assume that a child of about 7 to 8 years is not trying to steal trade secrets or steal or tamper with security reports. "I have to call the police if you do not hand the phone back right now." She glowers at me and then asks in an incredibly sassy tone, "Yeah, how are you gonna call the police without your phone?" I sigh, pull out my private phone, which actually does contain a few games, and frankly, if she'd asked any nicer, I would have let her son play with it. Even if he breaks it, no big deal. Dial the not quite an emergency police number and report what's going on. All the while EM glowering at me, very obviously not believing I really called the cops for something as trivial as that. Frankly, if I didn't have to, I probably would not have. If that was my private phone in her son's hands, I would not have bothered. Now, since this is a government building with a police station right inside the same building, it doesn't even take a minute until 2 policemen enter the room, which causes EM EM to go pale for just a moment before acting as if it isn't her business at all. The police asks me what's going on. I explain it to them. They ask EM and she has the audacity to claim that it's her phone and that I want to steal it from her. That's easy to prove. Lock the phone and see who can unlock it. She claims she forgot the code, but by then the policemen have a pretty clear picture what's going on. I unlock the phone to show it's mine and they ask if I want to press charges. I tell them I don't want to, but I have to. No later than now I do, because now there's a police report about it, so I have no choice anymore. And knowing our legal department, they usually get very creative as to what they try to slap on this, which I am currently not really regretting because as of this writing, I'm on this phone with our internal security who is just as happy as I am to deal with this on a weekend. That happened 2 months ago. A little update. I did not have an enjoyable weekend afterwards as predicted. Our legal department actually did press charges, including industrial espionage. Remember, we're talking about a boy of maybe 7 years playing with my phone. In the words of one of our lawyers, and I quote, "That way the sum is high enough that the Karen needs to hire and pay for a lawyer herself." I honestly don't know what's scarier, to think that they really tacked on industrial espionage to this petty bullcrap, or that a 50-year-old high-level corporate lawyer knows and uses the term Karen. See, most of the time entitled parents think they can get away with this crap because, you know, who do they think they're really messing with? Just some nobody. And that's how they see most people, as not important, and their property is not important. So of course they are entitled to it. So it is nice to see on an occasion when an entitled parent messes with the wrong person who's in a position to actually fight back. And it's so sad to see that they actually could have got what they wanted if they just asked nicely in the first place. A lot of people in my family have been telling me to give away some of my stuff to my newborn cousins recently, and it sparked a memory in my head about an entitled parent I had the unfortunate circumstance of meeting a couple of years ago. Here's the setting of this story. I was a wee little 8-year-old who obsessed over stuff like stuffed animals, and especially Beanie Boos. Back then, I had a giant imagination and constantly played with these guys. They were my only forms of entertainment too, since our family didn't have a console back then. Even though it's normal for a child to love stuffed animals, I was so attached that every time I left home for school, I made sure to get them up and out of my bed and give them food. I was a kid. I thought they were alive. When my mum would do laundry on the weekends, I would ask my mum to give them a machine bath so that they could be cleaned. One day, my mum decided that we should all go to the library to get some books so we could read over the summer. I was ecstatic because the library was one of my favorite places in the world. I always felt like it was a magical wonderland of sorts because of all the toys and games they had laying around everywhere. This day, I was so hyped that I had gotten out one of my favorite stuffed animals and tucked him in my pocket to take with me. I was planning to play with him there, along with the other toys they had in stock. When we had finally arrived, I headed down with my mum to the children's section of the library. She started looking for books that me and my brother could read, while I headed over to the mountain of toys. My mum trusted me enough at that point, and she had left me alone to play. At the time, I hadn't cared, and was just enjoying myself. Apart from myself, there was only one other girl there, who looked slightly younger than me, and her mum reading a magazine, or a book, I don't remember, on a bench near us. When I took out the stuffed animal from my pocket, all of the commotion started. Nothing I'm typing is going to be a direct quote. This was so long ago, and there is no way I could have memorized what they said. So I pull out my stuffed dog. His name is Buster, just to clarify, and EK automatically spots him. She rushes over and snatches him out of my hands. I am shocked. "Hey, give that back. It's mine."
"No, it's not. It's the library's,"
smirks at me. "What? No, Buster's mine. Give him back. I brought him from home." At this point, EM notices the argument, but she doesn't do anything about it. I am still fuming, and EK is refusing to give me the stuffed dog back. As an 8-year-old, I never wanted to use violence, as I was a pretty weak person, but I was so outraged. With all of my might, I tried to punch EK in the face. It missed, grabbed my stuffed dog, and ran off to find my mum. I hadn't even gotten rough with her. She had been the one who took Buster out of my hands and started the whole situation. After running for a bit, I found my mum and told her everything while halfway to tears. She was mad, but let it be and decided to head back home. But oh no, it wasn't going to end that easily. We were just about to leave when lo and behold, EM shows up. EM taps my mum's shoulder.
Excuse me?
How can I help you?
Your son hit my daughter and stole her stuffed animal.
What? Oh, you're the person my son told me about.
Yes, now hand the dog over and apologize or I'll call the police.
No, your daughter stole my son's stuffed animal and refused to give it back. If anyone should apologize, it should be your daughter.
How dare you insult EK like that?
Grabs my arm.
Give the dog back right now, you stupid kid.
I cannot handle this and break down. I am crying and holding on to my stuffed animal as tight as I can. My mum takes EM's hand off me very forcefully and clams me down. At this point, everyone has seen what is going on and all of them are telling EM to go away. My mum is fuming. I swear, if you ever lay a hand on OP ever again, you'll be down on the ground before you can think. EM is stunned and we walk away without another word. I'm always glad this story had the nice ending it did, but sometimes I wonder about what would have happened if I wasn't able to get my stuffed animal back from EK. The thought scares me though, and now that I'm older, I'll happily give some of my toys away to a child who does deserve it. It's funny the little things that mean so much to you when you're a kid. You might have gone to the shops with a favorite toy or hat and left it behind. It's strange how we can still remember some of those childhood moments when we've lost something to us, whereas we might have forgotten something we lost like a year ago. I wonder if it means so much more to you when you're a kid because you're so powerless in obtaining new property. You can't get a job, and if you're getting a gift, it's only on like a birthday or Christmas, and even then you don't necessarily get 100% say in what you get. Whereas when you're grown up, yeah, it sucks when you lose something, but you can usually replace it. So when you think about it, when an entitled parent tries to take the property of a kid, it's that much more worse than when they try to take the property of an adult. This happened in 2003 when I was 13. It's a long intro, but important for the story. We lived on a farm and my mother rescued animals and bought purebred dogs and horses to breed and to show. We had 50 plus animals at any given time, but none were in cages. We had the space for them to roam around the property. We had been doing this since I was 10, so I helped deliver my fair share of puppies and kittens. And then came the goats when I was 13. There were 50 white Angora goats in need of a new home after another farm closed down. We had the space, so we took them. And not long after that came breeding season. Some of the goats were too old to breed anymore, so they were separated from the other goats and bucks while everything went down. A few weeks later we could see which were pregnant, so we started to make separate areas for them to settle into while they were pregnant, and for when they had their kids. We had 15 pregnant goats. A few of the does were first-time mums. Most of them took to it quite well when the kids were born, but 2 of them rejected their kids. Angora goats only have 1 kid at a time on average. We tried to put those 2 kids with another family, but they didn't want them. So we had 2 choices: put them down or hand raise them. I chose option B. There was a boy who I named Stitch and a girl who I named Lilo. I did the whole thing on my own, getting up every 5 hours to feed them and clean their pen. We kept them inside. After 3 weeks of me doing this, the goats became very attached to me, but mostly Lilo, who would follow me around the farm during the day, whereas Stitch would play with the other baby goats. After 10 weeks, I'd weaned them both off the bottle, and they were ready to join the flock, which Stitch gladly did, but not Lilo. She got on better with the cats and dogs than she did with the other goats. She would follow me around everywhere, and would start bleating, crying, if I left the farm. So one day I took her for a walk. I had a dog harness her size, so I put it on her with a leash. I had no clue how she'd respond to this, and she'd never left the farm before, let alone had a harness on, but she took to it straight away. It was like she was so happy to be with me that she didn't notice the harness. Along the first walk down the driveway, one of my neighbors complimented me on my well-trained goat. Lilo absolutely loved it, so I made it a daily thing. Every day when I got home from school, I'd take her for a walk around town, and within a week, I didn't worry about at the harness or a lead. She would just trot along beside me with her tail wagging like mad. And then came Karen. We went down to the creek with me sitting and watching Lilo play in the water. The creek was at the back of the tennis court that sat beside a sports field. There was a cricket match going on that day, but unless you walked off the field, you couldn't see the creek, so I was out of sight, or so I thought. I heard someone walking up to me, so I turned to say hello. I didn't recognize her, so she must have been from out of town, or a friend of someone from town.
Hi, nice day, isn't it?
Me, uncomfortable. Yeah, it is.
Do you live on a farm?
Yeah, just up the road.
Do you have dogs? I'm looking to get a puppy for my son.
We don't have puppies right now, but we should have some in a few months' time.
Can I have yours?
Pointing to Lilo. That's a goat. From a distance, I guess she could have been mistaken for a dog, but not when you really looked.
Don't talk to me like that. I've seen you walking your dog around town. Now give me the dog.
Excuse me? That is a goat. And no, you can't have her. We have other baby goats you can have instead if you really want one. Karen, after really looking and realizing it's a goat and not a dog.
I don't like your tone, young lady. What would your mother think if she knew you were talking to me like this?
You can go and ask her yourself if you want, but it's your funeral. Pointing in the general direction to the farm, knowing what my mum's reaction would be to this woman if she was trying anything with her.
How dare you? I'll teach you for disrespecting me.
Karen proceeded to whistle and call out to my goat, in the way you would a dog, expecting Lilo to come to her. When this didn't work, she walked over and attempted to pick her up. Here's the thing about goats. They're fast little fellas. If you think you're going to catch one that doesn't want to be caught, you're in for a rude awakening. Lilo sprinted away from Karen and went in my direction. I picked her up and began to walk away, with Karen muttering profanities under her breath at me, and her failed attempt at kidnapping my goat. I was worried she might follow me home, so I took a detour through another property that joins up to the creek, and then to our property at the back of the creek. Even if she was to follow me, it's easy to get lost when going this way if you haven't done it before. I never saw Karen again after that, but it didn't discourage me from walking my goats. She was smart and loyal and darn fast when she wanted to be. Most of the time, she would be walking me, which is part of the reason why I took her off the leash. A message to all Karens out there: don't steal goats. A sentence I never thought I'd type out. Of all the things for an entitled parent to steal, a goat has to be up there with one of the weirdest. And I would have thought it was pretty clear the difference between a dog and a goat, but I don't know. Maybe you can make that mistake if you're not assuming there's going to be a goat there. I guess they both have 4 legs and a head? Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.